This is Revolution Therapy and Yoga. I'm Kate Morrissey Stahl, your newly 500-hour yoga teacher. If you can't hear me at any point, please shout out. And I am starting a recording, so if you are, if you would prefer that you not accidentally end up in the recording, you could mute and turn off your video, and then that would make it possible that you wouldn't be on the recording, because we do share the recording. Let's see, I'm going to make you the host, Nicole. Let's start in standing position. So as usual, we're going to do, about an hour, really about 45 minutes of movement, followed by about 10 minutes of rest, and then about a half hour of sitting mindfulness. And you can come and go as you'd like to. You could let go of this if something else happens that you need to tend to. But let's let go of our expectations for how our bodies will feel by instead replacing it with an actual awareness of your body today. Rooting through your feet, checking in, making little movements to see like what's going on with your body today. How does it feel? Maybe there are areas that are calling out for kindness. My daughter was sad that I was leaving the house today, so I have a little heartache around that. So I'm just sort of checking in with kindness, with myself about that. So are there places in your body or in your heart to check in with a little bit of kindness? Can you find this upright position in which your breath just kind of so naturally deepens? And could you follow your breath to start with your shoulders? Your knees could be unlocked. Big shoulder circles. And then circling your shoulders forward. It can even be interesting to start with some vulnerability, because I think we can also sometimes have thoughts to let go of. Like, will people judge my vulnerability? Will it be okay to show up as I am? You could circle your shoulders back and down. Find this open, brave position. Rooted, lifted. When your exhale comes, follow with your hands to heart center. And when your inhale comes, sweep your arms up. You could look up a little if you want to. Can you feel your ribs? Can you sort of engage your ribs? Exhale back to heart center. When your inhale comes, sweep your arms back up. And then when your exhale comes, you could bend your knees, come forward, fold forward, to a forward bend. Maybe with your knees bent a lot. Inhale to lengthen. Exhale to fold. Let's do that a few times. Feeling into your legs, into your back, into your breath, lengthening and folding. You can feel it in the back of my neck. So different after you slept, right? Next time you come into the lengthening position, hang out here a little longer, press your legs away from your head, use the strength of your arms to get traction between your head and your hips. And as you come to your breath, let's see if you could gently loosen your grip on the words that move through your mind. So they'll come in. Could you loosen your grip? Seeing if it's possible to let go. Let your hands, walk your feet back. Let's hover here in all fours. So you're drawing your navel towards your spine. Spread your fingers wide apart. Reach through the crown of your head. It's like how it felt when there weren't those couches cluttering the room, like we could walk around. What if the words in your mind could kind of swirl through so it was just less cluttered? And it's okay, you know, that there might be a lot of words there on a given day. Let's drop knees down and then cat-cow. Dropping your belly and then arching through your mid-back. Oh, finding your breath. Enjoy your spine today. And so as we're thinking about letting go, I'll invite the spirit of the letting go to be one of kindness. So it's not like, you jerk, you did the wrong thing, now let it go. No, it's instead this spirit of, as you're surveying your landscape, is there anything that's not serving here? When you come to center, bring your spine to neutral, and then kick your right foot behind you, left arm forward, belly engaged, yeah? And then could you bend your foot? And then could you press your heel towards the ceiling? So we're just gonna kind of activate and warm up our hips and also our shoulders. I have a friend who's working to drink less alcohol and is working on this idea that in drinking less alcohol, it's not out of sort of like if she's hungover, like harshness towards herself in the morning, right? It's like, oh, you know, you're feeling sick. This thing is not nourishing you in the way that you're hoping it will. So coming out of this spirit of kindness to think about, how might we lose things? What things might we benefit from losing? All right, let's release that side. Let's circle out the sensation in the hips and shoulders. Losing things isn't hard to master. Okay, take your right foot back, left arm, and again, take some time to get your stability here. You could bend your knee, but you're keeping your hips engaged, keeping your belly engaged, and then reaching through your heel. Warming up your hip and your glutes. Breathing. And then loosening around the words so that you can just bring a sense of curious kindness to your body the way it is this morning. A couple more breaths here. And then let's release this. Let's sit back to child's pose, resting and remembering that this is a place, depending on how it feels in your knees, where you can always come back to. You can always come back here and just sort of come back to your awareness, take a rest. If anything we're doing doesn't fit so well with your body. And that'll be different on different days. So I'm going to call out forms, but it's your body, and they might or might not fit, and you can adapt them so that they feel interesting, rich, nourishing for you. I'll give you some ideas for how to do that. But so now that we're down, let's come up on the elbows and grab opposite elbows so that you can tell your elbows are under your shoulders. And then bring your arms forward. Let's bring some more heat into the shoulders and into our abdomen. So we'll come back to dolphin pose, yeah? Feel your shoulder blades slide down your back. And then following your breath with your exhale, if you feel like it, you can come forward. So we're gonna play with moving sort of towards the plank. It's not quite a plank, depending on how wide you're how wide your downward dog is. So you can kind of play with your stance here, but let's warm up our abdomens, our shoulders, like a dolphin might. Maybe there are thoughts that come up around different poses or feelings, you know, that it would be possible to notice and then to sort of lose, to let go, to see if it comes back. Let's do this for 3, 2, 1. And then come back, drop your knees. Let's come to child's pose with your hands back by your hips. Rest your forehead. Sigh out some air. And then let's bring hands forward. Let's come to downward facing dog. So you could do it slowly in a way that activates your abdomen if you feel like it. Kicking back, spreading your fingers wide apart. Downward facing dog. We're just gonna do some standing poses from here. So let's step forward to warrior one with the right foot. So, you know, maybe your hand will help your foot, or maybe your foot will just kind of step forward. Your hips are oriented forward. We're gonna play here a little bit. Your arms could come up by your ears. Maybe it's possible to notice moment to moment, like the bigger patterns in our lives, right? Like if there's this sense we must always be working, then how does that play out in terms of how we relate to our bodies and our relationship to rest? We certainly can have a sense that we have to hold on to thoughts, that they're important to keep and treasure and collect. When your inhale comes, could you straighten your leg? And then what I'll invite you to do is twist. We're going to come to a revolved triangle. So you'll twist, and maybe your hand will be up high, or maybe lower. Maybe it'll be on a block or something, like a book at your house. But we're just coming to sort of a revolved triangle, and you're kind of lengthening through your spine. Can you press through the outer edge of your back foot so there's still a lot of weight in your back foot? And then I keep a micro bend in my knees. That's a protective idea. Then you can still engage your quadricep with that micro bend. When your inhale comes, unwind. Keeping your front leg straight, let's reach forward and we'll come to pyramid pose this way. So just kind of straightforward. Your hands could be on your leg, your shin, the floor. For me, COVID has also had a lot to do with losing things. In my case, fortunately, not people, but expectations and sort of how things will go. I prefer to be in person with people, so, you know, losing that human contact of seeing people at yoga or seeing people in my social work classes, you know, body to body. Inhale, come back up. Oh. And then if you'd like to, you could flow, or we'll head straight back to downward facing dog. So the flow would be coming to plank, lowering some kind of weight, maybe chaturanga, coming to some kind of back bend if you're flowing, and then back to downward facing dog. Taking a few breaths here. I like to keep my knees bent quite a bit to really keep any strain out of my low back. You could see what feels good for you. When you're ready, take your left foot, step it forward. Set up for warrior one on this side, hips oriented forward, arms up by your ears, breathing. And in this poem, this lady she's losing things, but she's also acknowledging actually change is hard. Actually losing things can be really challenging. Even small changes can be quite disorienting. So being in the present moment, practicing that skill can help. You could press through the outer edge of your back foot, getting really, really nice and grounded here in both legs, so that when you straighten, you're ready to twist towards the leg that's in front, and then to find your revolved triangle. Maybe with your hand on your leg, or possibly the floor. Could be on the inside or outside of your foot. You could find where it's most interesting, like sometimes if you're up a little higher, you can do a little more in the hip, and it's interesting in a different way. And could you find your breath even as you balance here, you know? Could you let your breath kind of move you? When your inhale comes, unwind, come back up with your straight leg. And then exhale, find your way forward to pyramid pose. Hand on your leg, hand on the floor. Working your breath. Softening your jaw. Could you soften the area around your heart? You bring in some kindness to yourself in this moment. When your inhale comes, sweep your hands back up. Could bend back into warrior one. And then let's head back to downward facing dog. So you could do it through a flow, or you could step straight back. The flow would be inhaling to plank, exhaling to lower, inhaling. So some kind of a back bend, exhaling to downward facing dog. And then when your next exhale comes, look up between your hands, step or hop your feet up to your hands. Inhale to lengthen. And then exhale, let's come into a forward bend. Shaking your head no, nodding your head yes. If you tend to have low back discomfort, I think it's always nice to keep my knees bent. You could see if that feels good for you. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost, but their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, except the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. When your exhale comes, let go of wherever you're holding in the forward bend, and then inhale. Let's come to standing. Reaching up, little back bend. Exhale, hands at heart center. You might imagine that anything you don't need kind of drains out your feet into a root system that goes into the ground. And let's balance. We'll do some version of dancer. So balancing on your left foot, you could hold your right foot in towards your butt, press your hip forward a little bit, getting a stretch through your quadricep. If you want to, your hand could be on the arch side of your foot. And then you could kick and reach for dancer pose. So you could stay more in the quadricep stretch or do more of the tipped balance. And then breathe here into the movement. Different on different days. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Lose something every day, consciously. And pay attention when losing. We don't have to clench up and close our eyes. Consciously losing something. Release that side. Circle out your hips. This can be a big part of acceptance practices. It's really paying attention at times when we might otherwise just sort of not pay attention. Just circle your hips the other way. Like paying attention when we're balancing. Or being attentive to transitions. Being attentive to the moment when we lose our balance, if we do. And press your hip forward. And then again, your hand could be on the arch side, your other arm up, and then you reach and kick. It's important to pay attention when we lose things because it is part of the experiment. Is this a disaster? Is it okay to lose my balance? Is it okay to make a mistake? Is it okay if things change? Finding your breath. And then exhale. Release that side. Shake it out. Shake your whole body. Shake your face out like a horse, like. Take a moment to massage your jaw. And let's do a little bit of hip opening with Warrior 2. So let's step right back to it. Take your right foot, step it way back to a nice open hipped Warrior 2. Your feet are perpendicular, your hips open to the side wall, your knee is over your ankle or behind it, but not forward of it. And then you could reach with your arms. So really nice stability. You could press your feet in, draw them towards each other, activate your thighs. Lift through your pelvic floor. Although when pelvic floor therapists teach Kegels now, they teach it as hold your anal muscle like you're trying not to fart. Because that will also do your Kegel. Lift your pelvic floor and do all the wonderful things that does for you. So that could be your practice while you're lifting your pelvic floor here. Good. Look over the middle finger of your front hand. And once you're here, just settle in. When your inhale comes, straighten your front leg. Reach so that you get a stretch in your groin. Reach until you twist into a triangle pose. Maybe kind of focusing on being set up as though you're suspended between two panes of glass. So rather than sort of pitching forward to make it easier on your hip stretch, keeping open, keep your hips open. And stretch the inside of your left leg. You can look up at your right hand, down towards your bottom hand. The train felt really close right then. Can you find your breath? When your inhale comes, bring your arms back to parallel, bend back into warrior two. And now from warrior two, let's cartwheel down into a high runner's lunge. We're going to work through the hips here a little bit. So it could be here. You could come to the inside of your knee if you felt like it. We're going to sort of make this more about the hips. So you could sort of work further down to get a stretch here. Breathing. It's kind of playing at whichever version of the form feels interesting. Stretching out that psoas can be so nice if we spend a lot of time sitting. And now let's see if you can regroup with your hands, come to a high runner lunge. So it's kind of strange. We're sort of shifting the feet around. And then bring your hands down, step back to downward facing dog. Rooting in with the insides of your hands. You can shake your head no, nod your head yes. And now let's take the right foot forward and set up for warrior two on the other side. So at first the feet are perpendicular. Your knee is over your ankle. You're reaching. Looking over the middle finger of your front hand. Feeling the strength of your legs, feeling the lift of your pelvic floor. This is a great place to work the pelvic floor and the thighs that move around it. And then bringing kind awareness to yourself in this pose. Today, I don't feel at peace with the idea of letting go. Practicing letting go. Something is stuck a little bit in me. And so then it could be like, well, what if we just bring some kind awareness to that? That whatever our experience is, we don't have to add harshness to it or make it worse by judging our actual experience. When your inhale comes, straighten through your leg, reach, and find triangle pose. Getting a stretch through the groin, your groin. There's this idea in acceptance and commitment therapy, the style of therapy I practice most, I'm a clinical social worker, a mental health therapist. There's this idea of clean pain and dirty pain. And clean pain is the pain of living, you know, we twist our ankle, we get our hearts broken. And dirty pain is when we attack ourselves for having the clean pain. Or we intensify the clean pain by struggling with it or denying it. When your inhale comes, come back up to parallel with your arms, and then we're gonna cartwheel around, yeah? And your back toe foot will come up onto its toe to do this work here in your hip. So there's some kind of clean discomfort as we work here, maybe. You don't really want sharp pain, you want to move away from that. But there also can be sensations that are like slightly aversive, right? Like your hip stretching or being slightly hungry, slightly thirsty, where there can be some curiosity about the sensation rather than our minds immediately moving to fix it. A variation of this would be setting your back knee down if you feel like it. But let's get our hands kind of set. Somebody's hammering next door. I knew that was happening this weekend. So get your hands set, your feet set, so that you can come up to this sort of balancing version of standing runner's lunge. Three breaths here. And then with an exhale, drop your hands down. Now step your back foot up to your front foot. Oh, when they meet, inhale to lengthen. Exhale, let's come into a pretty active forward bend. Maybe you hold behind your legs and slide your shoulder blades down your back. Maybe you tend to have some low back discomfort, so you always keep your knees bent to keep your torso on your legs. That will help to keep the stretch out of your low back and more in the backs of your legs. And you emphasize your exhale. So now we're going to move towards the ground with a lot of awareness towards your knees and gentleness. So these forms might work for you or they might not feel as good for you. You can sort of see. I'm going to invite you to walk your feet to where they're like at 45 degrees and about as wide as the short side of your mat. And then to squat down. I gave birth this way, so I've practiced it a lot. Then you can walk your hands forward and kind of stretch here. If that doesn't feel good, then you can sit back, either in child's pose or sitting on your butt, stretching through your spine. And then if you want to, you can go up to center using this to stretch your hips, like bringing your hands to heart center. It's a very practical pose for when chairs are not available. You may want to activate your pelvic floor here too. Let's put some pressure down through your abdomen, so then you're lifting to support it. When you're ready, exhale, sit back, Bring your feet together for cobbler's pose or bound angle pose, some version of butterfly pose. And here, your feet can be opening. You could put a blanket under your knees if this doesn't feel good in your knees, but see if you can get a nice long back. So instead of having your feet further in and rounding through your low back, find a place with your feet where your back can really be quite upright, and even your hips could sort of tip forward. And breathe here into your hips. Asana in the 8-limb tradition of yoga was about opening the body so that you could sit comfortably. And so that's how we're practicing it today. Getting the body sort of open and comfortable so that you have a space, a vantage point from which to observe your mind. With curiosity, with kindness. So if it feels fun, take 2 fingers and hook them on your toes. And let's balance in some version of the pose where you kick your feet out. So it can be here, balancing, lifting. It can be that your knees are kind of bent, and here it can be out. And you're playing wherever it is, drawing your shoulders down. Finding your breath. Move a little bit side to side. Losing things isn't hard to master. Is there anything you could let go of this moment? And maybe the answer is, I don't know. I don't know is a very good answer to a lot of questions. Let's bring our feet back to center. And then let's come up onto knees. So we're going to do our back bending in camel pose on knees today. And frankly, camel pose is exactly bridge pose, but you're doing it standing up. So if you have a preference for bridge pose for this next couple of back bends, that would be another way to get a really similar kind of experience. Some people also find that they need extra padding under their knees to stand on their knees. You could see what feels good for you. So I invite you for this first camel to, instead of planning to put your hands back, to put your hands on your low back, supporting your spine, opening through your chest, and then making this one really about lengthening. So you're pressing your hips forward to engage your belly and your ribs, and then inhale, lift. And exhale, you could soften a little bit into the bend. But let's say we just go to, 70% or something. Your elbows throw towards each other, your heart lifts. You're exploring how much space can you find in your spine to kind of lean into without there being compression in your low back. There's a lot of freedom. And then there's also some compression in your diaphragm, and then that helps your breath to become stronger. Two more deep breaths here. Elbows moving towards each other. And then inhale. Come back up. You could sit back on your feet if that feels okay, or sit in a different way if it doesn't. And this is a good moment to check in with your low back. If there was a lot of compression, then right now there might be a little discomfort in your low back. In which case you might need a little bit more length and a little bit less drop. Maybe nothing, pretty neutral. Then maybe you want to drop in a little bit more on the next one. And you could experiment with holding onto your feet. So when you're ready, come back onto your knees. And eventually you'll hold on to probably your ankles if you feel like holding up. So your toes could be tucked under, or they could be down, which will just take you down a little bit further. So you could decide which way feels right for your experiment today. And then you can bring your hands to your back. Again, you can see like ribs tend to poke out, so then you're sort of engaging your front body too. Lifting through your back. Once you find the length, if you feel like it, you can reach down towards your heels. Some people drop their head back. To me, I was going to say it doesn't feel good in my neck, but it really does feel great in my throat. So you can see what feels good for you if you want to drop your head back. Find your breath. 5 breaths here. Focusing on the length in your spine, the openness in your heart. Your breath will support that openness. 1 more breath here. And then if your hands were down, you can bring them to your low back to support yourself. You come back to center. Let's stay on our knees for a moment. And then let's come into gate pose right away. So we're going to work the muscles around the low back. So your right foot can come out. There are variations with the foot forward. I like it pointed out to the side. And then your right hand on your right leg, and you can just tip down to stretch into especially your low back. You can also kind of use this hand to find the slight twist in this. Your torso is slightly twisting towards the ceiling. You're breathing. Bringing some curiosity into the side of your belly, the side of your low back. Is there anything interesting you could stretch there? When your inhale comes, come back to center. Hands to hips, knees back to center. And maybe feel the difference between the sides of your body. And then move over to stay on the camera, and then take your left leg out. You can take a moment to orient your hips forward still. And then your right arm comes up by your ear. You can just work your way down. So there can be some weight in this hand, or not. Maybe calling to mind again as you stretch that area where you could potentially let go. And starting with kindness to kind of loosen your grip on the expectations you have for that area of your life. Consciously applying some curiosity. Like for me, the area of work, some curiosity, there are transitions. What's the right amount? I don't know. I don't completely know. Moving to a new space, who knows? 1 more breath. And then inhale. Come back up. Let's move however you want to onto sitting. And let's do a little bit of cat-cow to release our backs before we move into some twisting to round out the practice. So I almost never skip this pose. You can hold onto the backs of your legs and find a really nice cat-cow. But sitting, if there's a place that feels especially good, stay there longer. So now take your right hand, hold behind your left leg, and twist open to one side. And breathe here. So you're holding your leg and twisting. Keeping your spine pretty straight. Stretching even in through your jaw. And then come back to center. Let's do the same thing. Left hand. Oh, right leg twisting the other way. Breathing, emphasizing your out breath. Two more breaths here. And then come back to center. And I'm going to invite you to find a wall. Maybe you don't have a, you can also do it with a chair. It'll be, you know, some version of legs up the wall. If you feel like this, you can do it without a wall. So this will be a letting go version of a keyhole stretch. So you can put your legs up the wall or onto a chair. So if it were on a chair, it'd be like this. If it's up the wall, you're scooting your butt closer to the wall. And you really want your hips to be on the mat. So you're not scooting so close that your hips are up in the air. And then take your right ankle onto your left knee and use this position to find a nice restorative hip stretch. Where you're doing a keyhole pose, you're walking your foot down. And again, as you walk your foot down, don't let it lift your hip. In fact, you could rock your hips so that you could slip a ruler under your low back. So you're keeping the natural curve of your low back. You could flex your right foot. You could roll your head left and right. So make it this really restorative, telling the muscles it's okay to relax. It's okay to kind of soften here so that your hip muscles can soften a little bit more. Maybe your exhale could be twice as long as your inhale, maybe. It doesn't have to be exact. You don't have to count it, but you're starting to kind of wring out and release any tension from the practice. And then bring your feet up and switch to the other side. So right ankle on your left knee, foot walking down, where you're getting an interesting stretch. Your hands are free, which is nice. Maybe you want to massage your neck or your jaw. Or maybe you just want to let your shoulders kind of rest. My jaw is always a little tight, so I always like to massage there. Working your breath in this position. I'm going to turn on the white noise machine. You could walk your feet back up the wall. And let's do one last twist. So you could, with your butt by the wall, walk your feet over and twist open to the right. You can do this without a wall too. Breathing into your spine, softening your face, softening your jaw. Then you can walk your feet back up and walk around to the other side. So twisting the other way. Could you soften your hold on the words that move through your head? Could you soften your grip on emotions that move through so that they can come and go of their own accord? You don't have to keep any particular one or get rid of any particular one. And then you can walk your feet back up to center. We have about a minute for any kind of final movement that you want to make. Could be starting to tuck yourself in for Shavasana. Could be a pose that you wanted to do that we didn't get to today. Getting a drink of water. We're getting settled and set up for the second part of practice. I'm going to refill my tea. Take another 10 seconds or so to wrap up whatever the pose is. And then as you are ready, find your way onto your back for our final resting position. And I'll invite two more movements to settle in. And the first one is that you would squeeze all the muscles you can feel. Squeeze your hands to fists, your foot to foot fists, your feet to foot fists. You could crumple your face, squeeze your butt, hold tension in your body, squeeze, hold. Every muscle that sort of would move you towards being a little ball. Those are the ones that you squeeze. And then exhale, release that hold. Now use the muscles that lengthen through your arms. Spread your fingers and toes apart, lengthen your legs away from you. Finding a nice, long, open body. And then release that tension as well. Giving your weight over to the support of the floor. Your eyes could be easily closed or open. Your breath neutral. I will be watching the time. So there's nothing that you have to do. And if your mind tells you there is something, tend to the future, tend to the past, you could see if you could, notice your mind doing that, and also let go of your grip on that urge to do something. Giving yourself this time to let go. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost, but their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, except the fluster of lost door keys, an hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing further, losing faster. Places, names, and where it was you meant to travel.
None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster, some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I miss them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master. Though it may look like, write it like disaster. Start to bring your attention back into your body, moving your fingers and toes, giving your body a good stretch. And when you're ready, we'll transition to the sitting portion of practice if you're participating in that part. And so you could tip over onto your side and then use the strength of your arms to press you up to a sitting position. The intention of the sitting position is to be relatively comfortable. So it could be easy cross-legged pose. It really could be on a, thank you, Emma. It really could be on a cushion or a chair. And so as you transition, you could take a moment to notice the impact of your movement practice on your body, to offer yourself some gratitude for making space to do that practice. And maybe you have a meditation practice that already is part of your world, in which case you can do that. If you're not sure, then one practice that I learned when I was learning shamatha at Shambhala Mountain Center in Colorado was that you could simply name thoughts as thoughts and feelings as feelings. And then come back to light awareness on your breath. Some people keep their eyes open a little bit, some close their eyes. Your hands could be on your knees or some other mudra. And since there is some construction here, I'll have my audio muted a bit, but I'm after I ring the gong. And then I'll unmute again to ring it at the end. Bring your attention back to the room that you're in. If it feels interesting, I'll invite you to call to mind your intention, the area where there's this question of letting go or losing things, mastering losing things. Setting the intention to bring the effort that you put in today, whatever lessons, to that area of your life. And if you want to, you could repeat out loud or to yourself after me, where may I be aware of my wholeness. May I remind others of their wholeness. It is a pleasure to get to practice with you all today. Thank you for showing up, practicing, and bringing. It was especially nice to hear your intentions at the beginning. I hope I get to see you again next week. Take care.